Hi, it's Amy and Tim from Go With Less. In today's video, we're going to share some of the things we've observed about how Europe is different than what we're used to in America. Kind of a fun conversation, and this is purely our experience. So this might be a completely different experience for anybody else, putting a disclaimer out there. What do you think?
No, I think you nailed it. So we've seen a lot of things here that are different, and so we wanted to share with you guys what we've seen that we think is different from back in the States. So the first thing we're going to note is bags. And so when you're carrying bags on an airplane, there seems to be some different rules, and there are written different rules for the European carriers. They seem to enforce them a little more than the U.S. carriers do. And so the bags are smaller that you're going to be able to carry on. Amy and I are obsessed with getting our bag on the plane. We hate the idea of going to the carousel when we land and having to have to deal with it. We want to be able to get off the plane and just go. And so we showed up at the airport planning to carry our bags on for the whole way. That didn't happen because our bags were too big.
And these are bags that we have taken on Southwest many times, no problem. These are bags
problems.
that we've taken on Lufthansa in the past to Europe. So this isn't a Europe thing or European Airlines things, but this is specific to some. We had two different airlines that this was an issue with, international airlines. Just be aware if you're looking to carry light like we are with luggage. Right. So there was no way that 9 weeks of stuff was going to fit on carry-on. This is like a teeny tiny little day pack was kind of all that would fit. Right, not even like a backpack, like a traveler's backpack, not talking about that kind of backpack, like a little guy. I am going to talk about public transportation where we've been. So we have hit kind of the bigger cities. Public transportation has been amazing. The bus and trains in general in Europe we found are absolutely terrific. They go up to, I think, like 200 miles an hour almost. So they can be speedy, they can be slow. It depends on what you pay for and what you book, but there are options. And so getting around on trains, on buses, by car, public transportation is, I find, more convenient than...
And affordable, more affordable.
Yeah, so I've lived in New York City and Boston. I didn't have a car there, so I made my way with public transportation in these cities. It was great, but having left there, I can't say that about other places I've been in the States so much. So yeah, very happy with Europe public transportation and getting around without a car.
Definitely. Something else we want to talk about is police presence. And so we've been to Mexico City. In Mexico City, there are guys with machine guns every 3 feet. And so in the States, there are more police than what we've seen here in Europe. And specifically, like here in France, there's been at events, there's been quite a bit of police at events. They're doing what they do. However, driving down the road, we never see police officers pulling people over and giving them speeding tickets and doing things like that. We just generally don't see police presence in most of the places we've been.
And that's even in the big cities pedestrian areas. So we're not just talking traffic cops, but in any way we have seen very, very little police presence. We've also heard very little honking of horns. We're used to horns honking in big cities. When we've been in Mexico City, I mean, horns are honking 24 hours a day. We had a second floor Airbnb with no AC. We had the door open. Horns honked 24 hours a day. Period. And I don't even know that it was because we were in such a busy neighborhood. I just think that's how it goes. We heard there's like very, very little horn honking everywhere we've been, and we've been in some major cities. It was really kind of quiet and surprisingly nice.
There you go. Moving along. So the next thing we want to talk about is the floor numbering for buildings here in Europe. And so floor 1 is actually the second floor. So floor 0 being the ground floor is what you're going to be on if you want to be on the ground level. So if you're going to be in an Airbnb and you're going to be on floor 1, expect to walk up a flight of stairs. And so that's something that we've observed here. I think this is sometimes the way it is back in the States, but not as consistently as it is here in Europe. Floor 1 is the second floor.
Yeah. As far as beds go, a single bed is for one person. It would be what we would call a twin bed. A double bed could be anything from a double/full, a queen, a king, or 2 twins pushed together. All of these could be called a double bed here. So it's hard, so it's kind of inconsistent to understand what am I getting? So we have been in everything, and everything's been called a double, and we've had all 4 of those things.
There you go. Windows are a little different here, and so something we've consistently seen, and I don't know if this is new or if this has been around for years and years, but when you go to a window, there's no screens. There's a window that will vent at the top, so you twist the handle one way and it'll vent at the top. You can twist the handle another way and you can open the window like you would a door. And then something else that we see with windows is there's a blind on the outside that closes completely, so it will completely darken and provide security for the space you're in. And so there's these blinds that are on the outside. We saw a blind in Munich that was unique, and I think we actually commented on it because this was the first time we saw that they had these wooden blinds that were actually special. We haven't seen those all over Europe, but it was sort of unique, but the same concept where the blinds would open and close to provide darkness for the room.
And we thought it was the craziest thing when we saw this in Berlin is where it was.
Berlin, that's
yeah,
right.
so when we saw it in Berlin, we're like, wow, this is kind of crazy. Turns out we've seen it everywhere since. So not so crazy. Next is the beds themselves. They don't have a top sheet. They have just a duvet cover. So it's a bottom sheet and a duvet. So making the bed is flip one thing, you're out.
Here in Europe, they use the metric system. I think the rest of the world pretty much uses the metric system as well. Unfortunately, we don't in the States. So there are some things that you might want to learn a little bit about what the metric system is about. If you're going to buy a drink out, you might want to know what
how many milliliters
how many milliliters like a 12-ounce can of beer is 355 milliliters, and so that's something you might want to be familiar with. So for us, something that's also important is temperature, and so Fahrenheit doesn't exist here, and so if you go set your room to 72, you're going to be in an oven. 72 degrees Celsius would be like 162 degrees, so that'd be a little hot. Amy gets confused in the next section. And so it's important to understand at least enough of the metric system to know.
An oven. 72. I would take 72 in a heartbeat right now. Ha.
So it's important to know what you're going to set your thermostat to if you're looking to do that in a hotel room or something. If you're lucky enough to have a thermostat in your hotel room and air conditioning in your hotel room.
Because air conditioning can be few and far between. First of all, we went to an Airbnb that said they had air conditioning, and that is why we booked it. It was a fan. That's not air conditioning.
No.
We had a hotel that said it had air conditioning. What they had was a system that cooled the pipes in the wall. It was hot. It was really hot. As a matter of fact, the weird thing is that it was really hot, but in a city that was very cold. So the city was chilly itself, the room was hot, and even opening the window didn't seem to let in any cool, fresh air. So they didn't really have air conditioning if it didn't cool the room. So air conditioning is few and far between. The kind of silver lining on this is that unlike some places, some areas in the States, it's melty, hot and humid outside, and inside it is freezing cold, and it's very hard to dress for that sort of thing unless you bring like a whole bunch of layers with you. Well, they don't have that here, so it's never freezing cold anywhere.
No.
During like hot times. So I'm not talking about like it is freezing cold in the summer. That's not, or in the winter. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about because of air conditioning. So it's very moderate if the air conditioning, if they have it at all. But we haven't had air conditioning in several of our Airbnbs.
So,
as a matter of fact, in none of our Airbnbs have we had air conditioning. And even when we asked for a fan in one of them, they kind of like, wow, we've never heard of anybody needing a fan here, even though it is extremely hot. So I think that Europeans might have like a different blood temperature. I'm always cold, but here I've been kind of hot.
Yeah, very hot. As a matter of fact, I think Amy and I are considering becoming nudist. So it's
I am
crazy,
not considering
crazy
becoming a nudist.
hot. What's up with the toilets here? So there's all kinds of weird things with the toilets. Something we consistently run into is there's this weird button situation where there's a big button and a small button.
We still haven't figured it out.
I think
he thinks he has.
that
I don't
one
think he
button, the bigger button, is supposed to give more water flow for certain situations, and then the smaller button gives less water flow for other situations. However, it doesn't seem like this. I don't know that I buy this. I think it's a scam. I don't know what's going on, but there's something up with the toilets, and we just don't know what the story is there.
This is a complete ridiculous thing to ask, but I know we have people from Europe who watch the videos. Do you know, can you answer in the comments, what is the small button and the big button? Because they seem
Well,
identical.
we got a little long-winded today, so we're going to break this video into two parts. So we try and keep these under 10 minutes, and so we're going to break it into two and give you another piece of this tomorrow.
Yes, and I am going to mention that this is not designed to be complaining and saying that things should be like America. We don't want that. That's why we left and took a vacation to other places. We love seeing where places are different and learning new things. So this is not saying this needs to be Americanized and homogenized in any way. We celebrate the differences, and if it came across as complaining in any way, that wasn't intended. If you did like the video, please give a thumbs up, subscribe below if you have not already. If you have any comments, have you noticed any things while you're visiting Europe, or maybe you're European and visited the United States? What's weird where we are? I'd love to hear that. If you'd like to share it, we wouldn't mind that either. And we will be back with part 2 tomorrow. Thanks for watching.